What's up, guys? Tim Little, Matt Allen. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin, and welcome to the first video in our 2025 Spring Buyer's Guide series. Today, we're covering the best baits that don't break the bank. To kick this Spring Buyer's Guide series off, we wanted to start with affordable baits. Bass fishing is full of tackle, and you can spend a fortune, or you can get suckered into a lot of cheap junk. It's not hard to do. What's hard is to find quality baits that are affordable. So Tim and I have put our heads down, we have dissected our tackle, and we have come up with the best baits by category that are affordable and will catch a pile of fish for you. We've got everything from hard baits, swim baits, soft baits, hook, line, you name it. You want to kick us off?
Yeah, it's always fun doing these series. It's one of the most requested series of the entire year. This one, the Holiday Buyer's Guide series, so we love doing it. So to kick it off, we're talking spring bass fishing, so what better bait to start off than a square bill? This is the Hunter 65 by Spro. This is in their Essential series, has great knock, and it comes sticky sharp, pre-rigged with Gamakatsu hooks. So you have a square bill, good color choices. You know, we love that red in the springtime, but most hard baits, you guys know that Matt and I, we change out our hooks. This is a bait right here that doesn't break the bank, and you get premium quality super sharp hooks on it. But that guy right there, an awesome bait for springtime bass fishing.
Next up, again, these are all baits that are geared towards springtime, and the way you make the cutoff is they've got to be affordable, and we have to catch a pile of fish on them.
Confidence. Yep.
This is from Strike King. This is the 3XD. Now, why a 3XD instead of a 6XD or a 10XD? Springtime. The deepest we go once we get into the heart of spring is a mid diver. Your deep divers, they'll come back as soon as we get into late May. But right now, that 3XD, that mid diving crankbait, is an overlooked size and depth range. That is a very effective bait that we have done a ton of damage on through the years.
Yeah, it's funny, the 3XD is not really the staple in that whole line, because there's the 5XD, the 6XD, the 8, the 10XD, right? But that 3XD, it has its kind of niche place for spring bass fishing, and we've messed them up on it. Fishing submerged brush piles, out, yeah. Anyways, next up, a lipless crankbait. We're going with the Cotton Cordell Super Spot. Again, lipless cranks, you know that we're either hopping them, we're burning them above grass tops. As this water temp rises and warms up, so does that grass, right? And those fish pull in it, and a lipless crankbait is an awesome bait to fish around those grass lines, to fish to burn over the tops of the grass. It's not too heavy of a bait, but it's super loud, and it's one of the cheapest baits in the entire...
It might be the least expensive bait in this entire thing.
But that guy right there is an awesome lipless crankbait.
Now, we will link, if you're not familiar with how we do these videos, we are linking everything that you see in the video description, and we'll put them in the order that they appear to make it really easy for you. So if you open the description below the video, you might have to hit more, scroll down, hit more again. You might have to click the 3 little dots, but there is a description that gives you links straight to Tackle Warehouse to each one of these, so you can see the baits, the pricing, colors, all those things right there, just to make it easy for you so you don't have to take notes. Next one up, we're switching over to Topwater. Springtime and Topwater. This right here is the Super Spook. The Super Spook is the staple bait, right? Guys, anymore, now you'll hear people talk about walking baits. As we were growing up, that's not what they said. You said a spook. I was throwing a spook. That bait to this day is such a fish catcher. That color, oaky shad, man, the sheer number of big ones we have caught on that right there is ridiculous.
Yeah, the walking, all these categories are such huge categories, but we're just trying to pick the bait that stands out in that category for the least amount of money, that we still have a ton of fish catches on and a ton of confidence. And that spook is, like you said, that is the staple in the walking baits. Now, next up, again, we're going topwater. We have a couple topwaters for you. A popper. You guys know springtime, as these pre-spawn fish move up, we're starting to get around the spawn, we're fishing tight to cover, and we like to flip and pitch these little poppers in and work the shade lines, really be accurate with casts and pick apart those key areas. We're not covering a lot of water per se like we would with like a buzz bait or something like that.
Right.
We still have some colder water, but a popper is an awesome bait this time of the year, and this is the Demiki D-Pop. Again, it's a quality popper, caught a ton of fish on, but again, you're looking for those key areas where those fish are going to stage up on, those key pieces of structure and cover. And a popper is something you can flip in there, cast in there, and work it subtly. You can bloop, 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 let it sit. Bloop, you can pop it. But that guy right there is a must for springtime topwater bass fishing.
The thing about that D-Pop, you know, if you really wanted to get creative, you could probably save an extra $1. I think that's about all you could save to go to a really, really cheap popper. The difference is that the D-Pop is balanced and it will walk the dog. So you can work it as a popper or you can work it as a tiny walk the dog bait. It's amazing what an extra $1.
Right.
When you're talking budget gear, you'll get huge leaps in what these baits are capable of or how durable they are. Now, another popper, except this is not going to be talked about as a popper today. That one is a popper. This is a chugging bait. So if you're not familiar with the difference, this is from Nomad. This guy right here is called the Chug Norris. Poppers, we fish them really soft and really subtle. Just bloop and just let it sit. Bloop, let it sit. You know, those rings dissipate. Whereas a chug style bait, we're gonna work that popper, sploosh, sploosh, blowing water with that thing. When you need to pick it apart, a nice calm morning, no ripples on the water, it's a popper. Post spawn, they start running shad, they're chasing, they're active, they're aggressive, and you have to get their attention. A chugging style bait will get the job done. It will draw those fish's attention. It will capture their attention and pull them away from a bait ball. That Chug Norris is like a micro-sized version of a saltwater popper. And the first time I saw it, I went, I don't know, that cup face is pretty big. But last year, I got on a bite during the shad spawn where this thing was lights out. And I will never forget that experience because it completely changed my opinion.
Yeah, we've all seen those saltwater videos where they're throwing those big, basically just a bigger size for the GTs and stuff, and just hitting it so hard. Same thing for the freshwater. It's very rare that a saltwater style bait can transition carries over into freshwater. All right, next up, getting into the wire and bladed baits. Can't talk about a spring bass fishing video without talking about a chatterbait, specifically the Z-Man, the original chatterbait, the bait that started the bladed jig, the chatterbait kind of
the whole thing,
the whole technique, right?
The whole change in our entire sport,
right? Lots of vibration, good hook. You can't talk about a spring bass fishing video without talking about throwing a chatterbait. And the Z-Man, the original chatterbait is the bait that kind of, set the standard for everything. Now there's a lot of higher end, higher priced chatterbaits, but again, budget wise, this guy right here doesn't break the bank and it still catches a pile of fish.
All right, next one up. Just like we can't talk spring without talking chatterbait, you can't talk wire baits without talking spinnerbait. Right, the spinnerbait is another one of those staple baits. I mean, if you wrote a list of if you're a serious bass fisherman, you have to know how to, spinnerbait and chatterbait are right up there at the top of that list. And if I was just going to pick one, just to tell somebody, here's one spinnerbait that is going to last, it's going to catch them, you don't have to worry about anything, it's going to be that War Eagle Screamin' Eagle. This is another one of those situations where you might be able to save a buck or two a different way, but you're going to get a bait that's cheap. It's flimsy. They break down. The Screamin' Eagle is a refined bait. Incredible colors, phenomenal O'Shaughnessy style hook in there, super strong, downsized blades. That's what makes a Screamin' Eagle so special. You can speed them up. You can fish them faster, deeper, They're a little bit finessier. They will get bit in more situations than a full-size spinnerbait. You just cannot go wrong with that spinnerbait right there.
Yeah, the way they hide that extra weight on the hook shaft, the shank right there.
Just
so that's a bait that you can keep down. You can burn it and it won't rise. That's a really cool spinnerbait. All right, let's talk inexpensive swim baits. We got the Largo shad, specifically the 3-inch. Now this is a bait that has a great swim. It could be rigged on your favorite guppy head or favorite underspin. It could be a trailer on a swim jig. But the Storm Largo shad is a bait that kind of, I don't know, gets in the shadows of like the Kitech and some of the other higher priced swim baits. But this thing totally works. It doesn't break the bank and it makes a phenomenal little swim bait. Like I said, whether you're throwing it on a single head without a blade, on an underspin, or as a trailer, this thing is awesome. And it, again, doesn't cost as much as some of our other favorite swim baits.
All right, next one up. This is from a brand that you wouldn't necessarily think would make its way into a budget or affordable video. This is from Megabass. But this particular bait, the Megabass Dark Sleeper, is an affordable swim bait. The Dark Sleeper is a really unique bait. So they come in a variety of colors, but there's several colors that make great bluegill imitators. Haze is by far our favorite bluegill imitator, which is going to be a killer in the springtime. This is a bait that you can be walking the shore of a pond, firing that thing out there because the hook is protected. The top fin is split and it opens up and the hook is inside. So it's weedless. You can run it around cover. But pond guy to the most serious giant smallmouth guy to the largemouth guy, the Dark Sleeper is not a cheap bait. It is an incredible bait that happens to be affordable. It is a bait that you can catch a pile of fish on and just keep on going. The only way that this thing stops is if you've got a small one that happens to clip that tail off and you're like, oh, I could have gone 30 more fish if it wasn't for you. That is just a bait that will catch one after another, and you don't need super heavy tackle to throw it. Personally, I throw this thing on 12-pound fluorocarbon. That is plenty of horsepower to set that hook, keep those fish pinned, so you don't need special gear. You're not going to break the bank when you pick one up, but you are going to catch a pile of fish with that thing.
That bait is so special. I've got largemouth up to 8 pounds on this, and then I don't know how many hundreds or if not thousands of smallmouth we have on this thing. What's cool about this guy is, I've caught 30, 40, 50 fish on one bait, and it seems like as many fish as you catch, the more beat up the bait gets, the better it works.
They just keep
continue to choke it.
Yep.
All right, next up, the Savage Gear. This is the RTF Bluegill. I'm going to open this up. Ready to fish. Pull this out of the package. Maybe not. Apparently it's childproof. Wanted to pull this out so you guys can see how realistic this is. Look at this guy right here. That thing looks so realistic. It has a great swim. You guys see that tail right there? This is an awesome springtime bait. It's an awesome bait to be thrown around the spawn. We all know those bluegill come up to the beds and you see the bass, herding them off, chase them off. What better way to irritate or catch a big angry largemouth than throwing a little bluegill right there? But this is a bait that you can chuck and wind. You can fish it close to bottom, has a stout hook on it, has a little bit of a rattle in it, but in our underwater footage, this thing swims so good. It looks so realistic. The one thing I will say, open it up, take it out of the package. It does smell a little bit, let it sit out, but this thing is an awesome, awesome little bluegill imitator, and it catches a ton of fish.
See that thing? I never noticed that. Interesting.
It got better, yeah. Doesn't smell that bad.
It doesn't smell as bad.
Yeah.
All right, next one up from the Buka brand. So Mike Buka, the maker of the Bull Shad, the Bull Gill, the Trick Shad, Buka brand is now building some of Mike's famous baits in plastic, right? Like a traditional bait rather than a handmade resin bait, and those baits have become much more affordable. This is the Baby Bull Gill. This little guy is awesome. It's small enough that you could throw it on a crankbait rod. You are not throwing big heavy swim bait gear. They are affordable, but you're talking about the swim of a high-end custom swim bait just in a downsized package. I mean, look how similar that size profile is. That is a size range that bass are targeting. When bass are spawning, they don't want bluegill anywhere near their beds, and they are vicious to keep them away. As soon as that ends and the bluegill are spawning, bass are equally vicious.
Yeah.
They are in there
Eating.
mowing them down. You are hard pressed to find a more fun way to imitate a bass in the to irritate a bass in the spring than to throw a bluegill swim bait. That's a really good option.
All right, now we're gonna jump into some of our favorite soft bait categories. So starting it off, we're gonna go with this guy right here. This is a tube. This is the Big Bite Baits Tour Tube. I don't want to open all these packages.
They stink. Let's leave them shut.
But out of all the tubes I fished, this is one of the most inexpensive packages, and it catches a ton of fish. Green
that's
pumpkin
not
purple.
a favorite affordable tube. That's
This is
just
a
a favorite tube.
This is
period.
Out of all the tubes, this is what I'm throwing, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't the price point at all. But this guy right here doesn't break the bank. That Tour Tube, they're soft enough. They have some salt in them, and they just work. I put a big kind of bulbous guppy head in there, fishing for smallmouth, fishing for largemouth. But if you're a tube guy and you haven't tried these guys right here, pick up a pack. They are awesome.
So these soft baits we're doing by category, right? So we picked one tube. Let's talk about one soft jerk bait. If we're talking about affordability, you're going with the Zoom Super Fluke. The Super Fluke is that bread and butter bait. They're affordable. They're hanging in every tackle shop, every
Yes.
gas station, every box store. There's a reason. They flat out catch fish. You put them on a wide gap hook or on a worm hook, and you just start twitching that bait. You can fish it like a Senko, you can let it slow fall, but the magic comes when you start twitching and working that bait. But that Zoom Super Fluke is such a fishy bait. And just spoiler alert, an extra little tip, smoking shad, that's my color. Right? That is my personal confidence color. It's just a fish catcher. Oh, you opened up like the stinkiest one of the bunch, too.
Well, I gotta show
At least
why.
it's on your hand.
I know, it's all greasy. Drop shot baits. You guys know there's 100 different drop shot baits. You guys know that Matt and I, we like to do a lot of underwater footage. We like to see, why is it this bait is getting bit more than this bait? What's special about this specific bait? So we'll run through baits underwater, and this is a bait that stood out a couple years ago in our underwater drop shot video. We had a bunch of fan favorites, a bunch of our favorites underwater, and this guy stood out. So this is the Bomb Shot by Missile Baits. It has kind of that ribbed body. Again, you guys can click on the link below and you'll see these up close pictures, but it has a really thin tail section. So even with the most subtle rod tip action or movement, with the boat waves, this thing is down there just shimmying around. It looks so realistic, so natural. It's not all over the place. It's not super crazy, but super subtle action. It looks really good. And it has that ribbed body kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it. Just kind of,
it's got a flow to it.
Yeah, a
like
flow.
nothing
There you
else.
go. That's a good word. But that guy right there, the Bomb Shot, is an awesome bait to rig with a nose hook on a drop shot. So that guy right there is our pick for the best budget-friendly drop shot bait.
And possibly just the greatest drop shot bait of all time. Yeah, it's that underwater footage. If you guys have been with us through the years, you've seen a lot of the underwater footage that we've shot. From just baits underwater to fish attacking baits, bass blowing up on frogs from below, all that stuff that we've been able to shoot through the years. You may not realize as you're watching that footage and you're learning that the day before when we were editing, we're watching that footage and learning, right? Some of our favorite baits were baits that we thought, you know what, we're going out, we're shooting underwater anyway, let's try that one too, right? It wasn't necessarily a favorite on the front end. We brought some extra things that we were curious about. And then we watch this footage underwater and just light bulbs start going off, right? And those are baits that are immediately put into our fishing. And then sure enough, the fish are all, because there's so many baits, it's hard to have tried them all.
Right.
But you see those things underwater and it's instant. You can see the ones that fish are going to respond to and the ones that they're not. It is amazing the difference. Next one up. This is the T-Mac. We're talking about a straight-tailed worm, shaky head type worm. The T-Mac for years now has been a staple bait in our lineup. You put that thing on a shaky head year round, it is just a fish catching bait. They come 20 to a pack, so they are extremely affordable, and it's just a staple bait. We've been doing damage with that thing for as long as I can remember. That thing has been a fish catcher.
Next category up, we're talking stick baits. This bait right here, this is the Yum Dinger. So same thing, underwater footage. We've shown these things through the years. They have a real slow fall, right? Real slow kind of pendulum style action with the arms. But this thing is one of the most expensive baits out of this entire category, this video, and I have caught a ton of fish. If I'm tournament fishing, I'm gonna spend the extra money. I'm gonna go buy some Senkos. They are my favorite. They are standout in the underwater footage, but this guy is a close second, and it's like half the price, or maybe I don't want to quote it, but
and like half the fall speed.
Yeah, super slow. If you're a bank fisherman, you're a pond fisherman, and you're just a fun fisherman, this is what I buy when I'm going out. And you can get the bulk packs. You know, they don't break the bank when my kids are fishing. It's just an easy way to save some money and still catch a ton of fish. So if you are a guy that likes to throw a Senko, they work, but you go through a lot of them and they're a little bit pricey. If you're a guy that wants to try something that's not as expensive but still works, this guy right here works really well.
This next one, a creature bait. From Big Bite Baits, this bait is called the Flying Squirrel. And I'm not going to make the mistake Tim made by opening up these packages. I can just smell it wafting.
You can feel it.
It's even better when you start mixing the different scents together. It is lovely out here right now. No, but seriously, the Flying Squirrel, we gave this bait up in a budget type video about a year ago, and this is a special bait that everyone overlooks. It doesn't look like much in the hand. It's a typical creature bait, but instead of having curly tails, it's got two little straight appendages, but the little nubs on the end of them float, and it makes this bait stand up, and when you shake it or pop it, those two little tails just flow in the water. This is a bait that on paper doesn't look like much. In underwater, it's really impressive. And if you could go through our old camera roll of the 5 to 8 pounders that have been caught on this thing, it is mind-blowing. It is just one of those baits that flies under the radar, but when you need to catch a big one, that is a bait that I always have. It's not just in the boat, it's in my little day box right here, just a grab and go box. Like, I need a bite, I need a good one. This bait right here, it's just one of those key confidence baits at any price.
Yeah, so it's interesting how your confidence works, right? Once you find a bait that looks good underwater, or you catch a fish on it, then you start fishing with it more, and you catch more fish, and you're like, man, I wish I would have thrown this 10 years ago.
Right?
You just build that confidence up. All right, guys, next category, we're talking about the Ned rig. Can't do this video without just talking about the basic, the original, the TRD. I'm gonna go ahead and open it up. Gotta show that Elastec.
Of course you are.
You guys, Elastec, right? You can catch literally 30, 40, 50 fish on a single bait. These things are super durable, high float. It's the original. So if you are a guy that throws a Ned, ultra finesse, I'm sure you guys have heard of these. You guys know, you fish them, how durable, resilient they are. But this is our top pick for the Ned rig category.
And Tim just gave you a little trick right there. If you have never thrown a Finesse TRD, that little...
Yeah, do that first.
Starts bringing the salt out, brings the salt to the surface. Do that before you start. It makes it look uglier, and they eat it that much better. It's just one of those tricks that just catches them. Next up, this is in the minnow category, which is now a major part of bass fishing. It is also going to double as our chatterbait trailer. So as a chatterbait trailer, no question, it's the Hog Farmer Spunk Shad, right? That's the one. That's the bait that we throw most often on the back of a chatterbait. But when we want a bait to do double duty, Hog Farmer came out with the Stroll Shad. this year, which is a slimmer profile, smooth bodied bait that has incredible role as a minnow bait. Sometimes we talk about baits that just seem to have that special something that bass responded. We don't know what it is, but they eat it. This is one of those baits that has it. The 5-inch stroll shad smashes fish, absolutely crushes them. Just in the short time it's been on the market, we have both blasted big ones all over the country already on every trip that we've been on. That is a minnow style bait. But you take this thing, pair it up on the back of a chatterbait. It's a little bit slimmer. It's an in-between size at 5-inch. Phenomenal tail movement. You could twitch and work that chatterbait, and it is a great bait working double duty for those two different things with a single bait.
Next up, the flippin', pitchin', punchin' category.
You want to add a little more licorice to the scent? You want to pop
Dude,
that one open?
I was thinking about opening this one just to show it, but just click the link down below and you guys can see pictures. I have enough oil on my hands already. But the Missile Baits D-Bomb, a lot like, or just like the Bomb Shot, having that ribbed body has that has a little bit of movement, subtle movement as that bait punches through the vegetation, and then subtle movement on the pinchers or kickers, if you will. But this is my top punching bait. If I'm heading to Florida, or if I'm fishing heavy grass and I'm taking an 1.5 ounce or a 2-ounce tungsten and I'm punching through that vegetation, I have a D-Bomb on there. Again, it works great for a jig trailer. It works great for just flipping and pitching around heavy vegetation, around cover. See how slippery
a little
my hands?
slippery there.
But that guy right there is our #1 bait for that category.
Why don't I just talk about these,
okay,
and hand you these,
okay,
and that'll sort of help us wrap up here. Let's talk hooks. Okay, I've got 4 hook options for you here. Hooks, this is one of those categories where you can spend a fortune, and you can do it quick, and quite frankly, it is the most boring fortune you will ever spend. You can walk out of the tackle shop broke as a joke, and you got nothing but some packs of hooks in your hand. So when you can find quality hooks that are affordable, or you have the option to purchase them in bulk to get that price down, that is a really good option. So first up, a shaky style head from Big Bite Baits. They call this the fin twist head. It is a screw lock style shaky head, so you actually screw it into the head of the worm, which for both of us is our preferred method. They make shaky heads that you rig different ways, and screw locks just hold those baits better. That's what we use. Comes with Gamakatsu hook. I mean, you cannot beat that, especially at the price. And then that's before it's a bulk pack. I mean, it's a ridiculous savings to throw that fin twist shaky head. For a wacky style hook, a handful of these baits, you're going to need a wacky hook. The most affordable option we've found is going to be that VMC wacky. And again, you can get them in a bulk pack. It is an affordable hook with some high-end additions to it. So where the hook eye comes around, that connection point is sealed. It's not just a jagged edge. So a lot of cheap hooks, that'll be a jagged edge, and if your line gets twisted around, it'll cut it. These are each sealed, which is a very high-end thing to do to a hook, and I'm amazed that they do it on an affordable hook. And then again, bulk packs make it even better. For drop shotting, it is hard to believe that this is a budget hook. I had to do such a double take because this has been our favorite drop shot hook forever. The Owner Mosquito Light is one of the best drop shot hooks of all time because the hook is so lightweight that it doesn't weigh down your worms. Again, going back to underwater footage, it was shocking the first time that we ran different hooks with drop shot worms. One hook, you're shaking that bait and you stop and it just sort of hovers there. Next hook, you stop and it goes whoop and starts heading to bottom.
Right.
It's crazy how much of a difference the weight of the hook makes. That Owner Mosquito Light is an incredible hook at 5 times its price. If we're talking about confidence when we know we're trying to catch a giant, it wouldn't matter what they cost, we would still buy them. The fact that they're affordable is amazing. And then last but not least, again from owner, this is called the all-purpose bait hook. This is a wide gap style hook, needle point. It was designed to be an affordable hook. That's what it was made for. So it's a do-all, from your creature baits to your Texas rigs, stick baits, fluke style baits, all of those different things you can throw on that one wide gap hook. And again, at any price point, that is one of the main hooks that I carry in my boat for my personal fishing, where I could buy just about any hook anywhere, but if you actually go grab my hook box and pop it open, you will see 2 or 3 kinds of wide gaps, and one of them will always be the all-purpose bait hook. It is a winner at any price.
All right, guys, let's talk about fishing line. I'm not sure if we spend more money on hooks or fishing line, because it can get pricey.
Both are boring as can be, right? It's a horrible place to spend a fortune.
Yeah, now if you're a guy that goes out and maybe fishes a handful of times a year, it doesn't get that expensive. But when you're traveling and we're switching lines on reels all the time, we're going from a clear Highland reservoir, now we're going down to Florida and we're throwing some braid on, we're doing some different line swap outs. Line can get expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've taught through the years that if you're a guy on a budget, or you're a guy that wants to increase sensitivity on any of your combos, the number one thing you can do is start off with putting braid to a leader. If you're not throwing a 2-ounce weight through heavy vegetation, braid to a leader, otherwise straight braid. But the Suffix 832, out of all the brands of line that we use, have tried, you know, minus some of the oddballs, you know, here and there, the Suffix 832 is spooled on a ton of our reels between the two of us. It's fairly inexpensive in its category, but it lasts a long time. You can fish a season or 2 out of just one spool of line. You know, change out your leaders and you're totally good to go. But that Suffix 832 is awesome braid for the price. Now, fluorocarbon. You guys know that stuff gets astronomical too. I mean, you can spend upwards of $40, $50 for a single spool. So when we're changing our leaders, right, we're talking braid to leader, two different options for you. These came out the last couple years. Yeah. The Seagar Basics and the Sunline, the Model FC. Now, in each of their lines of line, this is their entry-level price point for fluorocarbon, but it doesn't suck. It's actually really good. Right. So if you're a guy that, you know, that wants to spend more money on hooks or baits, and you don't want to break the bank and buy a bunch of high-end leader material, these two guys right here are awesome. So pair that up, Suffix braid, the Basics, or the Model FC, and you guys will have a setup, a combo that'll be super sensitive, and you saved a little bit of money.
All right, guys, with that, we're going to wrap this one up. Now, keep in mind, we are just kicking this thing off. This is our spring buyer's guide series. When we do this, we switch to 7 days a week. Now, this is not as giant as the fall buyer's guide series. This is 7 videos in 7 days, and today was the first one. Tomorrow, we are completely switching the script on you. We are talking JDM baits, new trends, what's happening, which ones are worth trying. We'll see you tomorrow.